So what if you're just asked to find the value of each, and you're just given a list of trig? So I want to actually going to have to use my calculator, and you're going to want to do this along with me so that way you can practice using your own calculator. And for this, we're going to be very specific to our rounding. So I want to round to the nearest 10,000th. All right, and we don't usually think of rounding to the nearest 10,000th very often. So it's going to be important that you know your place values. And so when you have your decimal place, you have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So I'm going to be rounding to have 4 values to the right of my decimal, which means I need to know the 5th place, and this is going to determine if I round or how I round. All right, so that's going to determine my rounding right there. But I'm going to have my final answer be 4 decimals. So let's just look at a list of just some various trig we want to be able to round. And then again, we're going to use our calculator to do this. All right. So cosine of 20 degrees. All right. I'm going to look at the secant of 22. All right. So I'm just going to write down a list. And then I'm going to go through and show you how to find all of these on your calculator. All right. So some of them, if it's a sine, cosine, or tangent, you can just straight up use the button on your calculator. But for any of the ones that are the secant, cosecant, cotangents, you're going to need to use reciprocals. Right? So let's just look at the cosine of 20. So again, as long as your calculator is in degree mode, you can just plug in what is the cosine of 20 degrees and round to 4 decimals. So in this case, it's going to be 0.9397 is going to be our answer. And again, that's the length of a side given a degree measurement. And all of these are usually what we assume called unit circles. Right? So we're going to look more at this as we move on. But you can see that you could not figure that out without a calculator. Now for the secant of 22, I don't have a secant button. So what I need to do is use reciprocal properties, and I need to think about secant is the reciprocal of the cosine of 22 degrees. And so with that, you're going to need to use a fraction in your calculator unless you have one of the calculators from class. Now remember, we've done some of these in previous notes where if you're using a classroom calculator, you need to hit the 22 degrees, then the cosine button, and you're going to need probably 5 decimals in that denominator before you create that fraction. Now, I would suggest you get a different calculator if you don't have one like this, just because when you're at home, it'd be a lot easier to just type in exactly the way you see it, 1 divided by the cosine of 22. And then we can look at this as 1.4 decimals would be 0.785. All right, so see, that's going to be a lot easier than the classroom calculators where you have to do this weird operation. Now, same thing with cosecant. Again, cosecant, you need the reciprocal property of sine of 15 degrees and then create the fraction. So again, this is the part that's really going to be important about reciprocals, is when you're asked to find a value that's not on your calculator, knowing how to create the reciprocal so that way you can do this easier. All right? Because there's really no other way. All right? Oh, and that's interesting. So some of these calculators you're going to get, look at this, it gave me an exact value with radicals. So I'm going to have to change this. Let me see. I should get 3.8637. 3.8637. All right, so just take your time. In tangent, we do have a tangent button, so that one's really straightforward. All right, 1.6643. And again, cotangent of 18, I need the reciprocal property first, and then I can figure out my value. So tangent of 18. All right, so 3.0777. All right, so that was really just kind of a little exercise in how to use your calculator and the reciprocal properties to find the value of any of the 6 trig functions.